Come in, friends. The door is open. Won't you sit down? No, not there. Sit by the fire. Let the bristling flames warm you. It is chilly in here, as if the cold air of death were in the room. The door is closed. The demons are ready. Clutch your chair. You are trapped in the Chamber of Chills.
All the stories we tell are true. We believe in ghosts. Do you?
Chamber of Chills presents Alien Abduction. Brought to you by The Bat.
I am currently writing this on a typewriter during another blackout, with only candles lighting up the room a little, and I am terrified, my fingers trembling as I begin to recount the most horrifying experience of my life. I had just finished a late shift at my security job and arrived home. I was eating my dinner when the lights went out. When I looked outside, I noticed all the lights in the neighborhood were out as well, and realized it was a blackout. Since I was already tired, I decided to go to bed earlier than usual and fell asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard a weird robotic breathing. I looked up and saw a silhouette of a figure standing in the doorway with big eyes staring at me. Before I could react, there was suddenly a blinding light, and I felt myself being grabbed and then dragged out of my bed, down the stairs, and outside my house. Then I was levitated up right into the sky, inside of a large beam of light. Next thing I remember, I was waking up in a tight, leathery cocoon-like structure, inside of which there was no room. It was like being wrapped up in a bed cover made of leather. I struggled and started to panic. I pushed and pushed before I finally broke out, but violently floated across the room with zero gravity. I banged against steel before I managed to grab onto something. I noticed I was inside a large cylinder-like room made entirely of steel. I noticed that I was not only wet but was bleeding. I must have had tubes put into me which ripped out when I broke out. I noticed that there were other cocoons against one side of the wall, one of which was moving, and I could hear a muffled female voice. I readied myself and managed to crawl along the cylinder walls and managed to reach the cocoon. I whispered, "Calm down, I'm here to help," and managed to rip the cocoon open. There was a woman inside and she was panicking. I managed to calm her down, but then heard loud metallic noises. I covered the woman's mouth and told her to be quiet. The noise got closer. It was like loud metallic footsteps. In the distance, I saw a large robot with spider legs and large tentacles and a big spotlight on its head, shining on the cocoons. That was when I realized it was checking the cocoons. I helped the woman out of the cocoon, pulling apart the leather-like material and carefully but quickly removing the tubes from her body. Just as she broke out, I managed to hold onto her and prevent her from floating away. The light shined on us before turning red. The robot saw us and a loud, deafening alarm sounded. The robot started crawling towards us. Me and the woman started to crawl along the walls, but the robot was fast approaching us. I saw a square opening in the wall which the robot couldn't fit through. It was our only hope, so as quick as we possibly could, we managed to reach it and pull ourselves into it, and what I saw will haunt me forever. It was a large room full of dead people who have been experimented on, cut open, torn apart. Corpses and human remains floated around the room. The woman and I froze in shock as tentacles wrapped around us, and I blacked out. I woke up with a blurry vision laying down. When my eyes adjusted, I saw I was surrounded by aliens. A few scaly reptilian-like aliens and a couple smaller bug-eyed aliens. I was in excruciating pain. I tried to get up, but one of the reptilians pushed me back down. I was then injected with a needle which paralyzed my entire body, but I could still feel. The aliens started to experiment on me, and I felt everything. I was in absolute agony when they cut me open, inspected my insides, and performed experiments. The last thing I remembered was them cutting my skull open and inspecting my brain. I woke up early in the morning, naked, next to a highway. I was found by a trucker who gave me some clothes and drove me to a hospital. When I arrived to tell the doctors and the police what happened, they didn't believe me. Even the psychiatrist I've spoken to have suggested it's just psychosis, but I know what happened. I wrote my story on the internet and reached out to multiple news publications and podcasts. But when I checked in the morning, everything I wrote was gone, and none of the people I reached out to replied back to me. That same morning, there was a knock at the door. I answered it, and standing there were two men in black suits, sunglasses, and fedoras. They stood staring at me as I realized their skin was very pale and looked leathery. They told me in a weird robotic voice that they were CIA and told me to stop telling stories or face severe consequences. Then they left. I immediately understood. This is why I'm writing on a typewriter. I haven't slept at night ever since, and now, during a blackout, I'm terrified. I've been terrified the aliens will come back for me. The one thing that's been on my mind recently is the woman who was abducted with me. Is she still alive? If she is, then we can share our story and make people believe what happened. I have to find her.